Harry wasn't able to sleep all night after hearing the explosion that took place at Oscorp, along with the death of his father, Norman. For all week, he didn't get out of his room, and he missed the whole weekend of school. He was in such a depressive state that he barely ate or drank or slept. At school, Flash was no longer suspended, and he talked to his friends, deciding to keep his powers as a secret for now. Peter was talking with MJ down the hall away from Flash, talking about Harry. It has been over 4 days since the night of the wrestling match. The two weren't only talking about Harry, but also about Peter's powers. MJ asks Peter while pulling out the mask that Peter dropped from atop the building on why he left. Peter looked down with a depressed expression, explaining to her that when he saw Flash reveal his identity as the Spider, he felt like he was too late and that he should find another way to test his powers. MJ asks Peter how he used his powers differently, and Peter explains what happened the other day. He explains on how he was on his way to school until he was interrupted by hearing a scream in one of the alleyways. He went over there to see what the trouble was, and he saw a man beating up a woman for money. He told the man to stop, but the man lashed out at him. Peter said next that he defended himself by shooting webs out at the man, stopping him from escaping for his crimes, and hurting him or the lady that was experiencing all of this. He remembered how the beaten-up woman thanked him, saying that he saved her life. Peter then said to MJ that ever since that event happened, he had the inspiration to help people with his powers. MJ said that she loved the idea, but asked him if he needed his identity as a secret to prevent anyone from knowing who he really was. And Peter pulled out a drawing of his new suit, saying to MJ that he is getting into his new suit and was thinking of calling himself Spider-Man. As school ended, Peter went back to his home, the Parker residence, and he got into work, working on his new Sam Raimi suit for hours, eventually completing it. When Peter is done with the suit, he puts the suit on and then puts his clothing over his suit. He went downstairs and told his Uncle Ben and Aunt May that he was going to go to Harry and hang out with him. Uncle Ben said to Peter that he'll give him a lift, but Peter told his uncle that he can just walk from here. But his uncle said that he actually needed a drive. Uncle Ben drove Peter at the front of the Osborn residence. Peter was about to get out of the car, but his uncle stopped him. His uncle wanted to talk to him. Peter asked if something was wrong, and Uncle Ben told him that for the past couple of days, he has been distancing himself from he and Aunt May. He just wanted to make sure he was all right. Peter tells his uncle that he is fine, and then he tells his Uncle Ben that for the past couple of days he had a lot going on with him, with evolving into a different person. Uncle Ben patted Peter on the shoulder and told Peter that he is going to get out of high school soon and he is going to be on his own. It's all part of life. Uncle Ben then tells Peter that every day he'll have to make a choice on how he is going to get by, but he should be aware of how it could affect others, including himself. Uncle Ben tells him that he was a good kid, and he just wanted him to know that he and May are proud of him, and that he should remember that with the great power he has inside of him, he must use it with great responsibility. Uncle Ben then said to Peter afterwards that he loves him dearly. Peter embraces his uncle and he gets out of the car. When Uncle Ben drives around the corner, Peter feels his spider sense go off, and he hears someone screaming in a building from a far-off distance. He quickly went into one of the alleyways and suited up. That scream came from a market on where two men with shotguns were entering, coming out with a lot of cash in two bags. Spider-Man came in and kicked one back to the door the two thugs came out of. The other, that was still standing, fired his shotgun. Spider-Man quickly webbed the shotgun, making it unable to fire, and Spider-Man webbed both of the crooks up. As the police arrives, Spider-Man swings away, feeling proud and good for using his powers responsibly, as his Uncle Ben told him to, back in the car. As the police saw him swing away, everyone started to question who this masked vigilante was, and the news went out about this remarkable event. Flash heard of this as he was going back to his home. Hearing of the bad news of his parents, they lost their jobs and they had to still pay off their bills that were needed to be paid months ago. Flash knew that this day would come, but this also gave Flash a spark of an imagination, an idea. He thought about how he could be a masked vigilante to help people, but it would cost a price. So he got into work and he drew out more ideas of his next suit. He got together his $3,000 from the wrestling match and he went shopping, getting the materials he needed to make his Sam Raimi Spider-Man suit with Alex Ross's red and black colors scheme. He put his suit on and said that the Spider is no longer a wrestler, but a heroic businessman. Back at Oscorp, a big man in a white business suit came into the room where the workers were. Everyone recognized the man as Wilson Fisk, a friend of Norman Osborn. Fisk told the workers that he was a close friend of Norman, and Norman told him that if anything happened to him, he would take over the company, instead of his son, Harry. The workers listened to Fisk, and they all agreed and voted for Fisk to be the new CEO of Oscorp. As Fisk is going into his new office, he meets up with the Chameleon, telling the Chameleon that he did well and asks him if he found Norman's body. The Chameleon pushed a button that was underneath the desk, and the wall opened up, showing Norman in a glass container. Norman would awaken as he was slowly healing from the burning of the fire and the rubble that was on him. He sees Fisk and he tries to move, but he couldn't. Fisk tells Norman that he had a debt to pay, and he's going to help him fulfill what he wants. Fisk then tells Norman that there is a new threat in this city of his, and he is known as Spider-Man. He tells Norman that he is going to help in killing him, and if he does not, then they'll come after his son. Back at the Osborn residence, Harry was watching the news about Fisk becoming the new CEO of Oscorp, along with the news about the new vigilante, Spider-Man. He is even more depressed, feeling weak and unable to move. As he is watching the news, Bernard tells Harry that he has a visitor. MJ comes in and tells Harry that it was so good to see him. Harry tells MJ that he doesn't feel like spending time with her or Peter, as he has things going on. MJ tells Harry that she heard about his father and she tells him that she was very sorry. He'll make it through this because Peter and I are always here for you, MJ said to Harry. As MJ and Harry are going to the balcony, Spider-Man lands onto the edge of the balcony and he pulls his mask off. Harry sees Peter's face in the suit, and this made Harry's spirit lift a little. He said to Peter that he saw the news about him stopping crime, and he is kind of jealous and also impressed. Peter told Harry that he should then take his blood. The two laughed and they embraced, feeling like it has been years since they've last spoke or seen each other. The three of them went into Harry's room and they decided to talk things out about all that has happened for the past 5 or 6 days. As the three are reuniting once again, Flash is swinging into the city in his new spider suit, trying to find a way to start working for money. Before Flash departed, he got the remaining money he had from the wrestling match and gave the rest to his parents, knowing that they needed all the money they could get. As the spider's spider senses go off like haywire, he sees a school kid being beaten up by two of his bullies that were trying to get money off of him. One of the bullies got the kid's lunch money, and the spider webbed that bully and pulled him towards him, snatching the money from the bully's hand. Telling the bully that he needs this more than they would ever know, the spider tackled the other bully down and knocked him out. The kid thanked the spider for this, and the spider said, "Anytime." The spider swung away with the money in his hand, saying that this is what he was probably meant to do. As he is swinging back to his home, his spider senses go off the charts. He looked around to know what was going on now, but he was knocked back, and he fell through a window. He looks up and sees a pumpkin-looking ball come through the window and land on the floor right in front of him. The ball was beeping, and the spider quickly jumped out of the way, and the ball blew up, starting a fire in the building. As the spider was about to leave, the man responsible for the attack came in, showing himself to the spider. The spider sees the man in a green suit that wore a demonic-looking goblin mask, hovering on a glider. The man said to the spider that he is going to be destroyed to complete his boss's mission. The spider put the money in his pocket and told the man that if he is looking for a fight, then he's going to get one. As Peter, Harry, and MJ are chatting, they hear a bunch of noises and booming outside. They look out through Harry's window to see the man in the goblin outfit throw the spider through another window. Peter quickly got his mask back on and said that he'll be back. Spider-Man swung into action and kicked the man off of his glider. The glider noticed that his owner wasn't on it, and it went after him. The spider tells Spider-Man as he is slowly getting up from the damage he has been taking that he is grateful for his assistance. Spider-Man asked who he was supposed to be from far off a distance, and the spider said that he calls himself the Spider. "Flash?" murmured Spider-Man to himself. He couldn't believe Flash was wanting to just follow him around. Spider-Man and the spider's spider senses went off, and they saw as the man on the glider was firing missiles. The two quickly dodged it, and they both shot webs at the man on the glider, tangling him in one web. The spider says with a laugh that it is all for the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin freed himself from the webs, and he decided to fly away. The two just stood there, watching as the Goblin made a retreat. The spider said that they did pretty good. And Spider-Man looked at him, asking if he even knew how much damage he had committed around them. They both looked to see the firefighters put out the fire on the burning building the Green Goblin set on fire earlier. Spider-Man told the spider that he should be more careful instead of going in like it is nothing. Innocent lives are always on the line. The spider shrugged his shoulders and began to walk off, saying that for a hero, he sure is judgmental. The spider swung away while Spider-Man was looking at the direction the Green Goblin fled to. He decided to go after him to figure out where he came from. As he is swinging through the city to try and find the Goblin finds him. The Green Goblin hits Spider-Man out in the air with a tranquilizer, and Spider-Man starts to fall unconscious. The Green Goblin caught Spider-Man in the air and flew to one of the rooftops of the building. The Green Goblin placed Spider-Man on the ground of the rooftop and used a serum that would awaken him. When Spider-Man woke up, the Green Goblin told him that he was sorry for knocking him out earlier, but it was necessary to keep his son safe. Spider-Man asked who he was supposed to be, and the mask's eyes open up. And the Goblin said that he was Norman Osborn. Spider-Man sees this in shock, and he couldn't believe this. It was impossible. The Goblin said that he needed his help in order to save his son. Spider-Man listened to Norman's story of what happened at Oscorp with the serum experimentation, the explosion, and about the chameleon and Wilson Fisk. Spider-Man told Norman that his son believes he is dead and is going through a deep depressive state. Norman told Spider-Man that they can't take the risk because if word comes out, then Fisk would harm Harry without thinking twice. Spider-Man sighed and told Norman that they'll do things his way, but if he told him his identity, then it's only fair that he knew his. He pulled his mask off, and Norman's eyes were wide in curiosity, shock, and fascination. Peter would tell Norman his story of what happened and said that only he, MJ, and Harry are the only ones that know about this. Norman promised Peter that his secret is safe with him. The mask's eyes started to close, and Norman says to Peter that he'll meet with him tomorrow at the roof of the Osborn residence around midnight. The Green Goblin left and went back to Oscorp to notify Fisk about there now being 2 masked vigilantes instead of 1. Peter puts his mask back on and he decided to get some rest after a long day of taking all of this in. Norman is actually alive, doing dirty work for a Wilson Fisk, and Flash decides to do what he was doing. What other crazy thing is going to happen next? Spider-Man asked himself as he was swinging through the city. As Spider-Man is heading back home, he hears gunshots in one of the stores. As he gets closer to the location on where the gunshots came from, the spider webs up every single crook onto a light pole and takes the crook's wallets, taking every single dollar out of it. As the spider is swinging to a rooftop to count the money he received, Spider-Man arrives and asks where he got the money from. The spider quickly put the money behind his back and asked, "What money?" Spider-Man said with his hand extended out to give the money back. The spider would tell Spider-Man that he needs money for a good reason. Spider-Man would scoff and tell the spider that he isn't a hero, but he is a crook, a stealer, a criminal. The spider puts the money in his pocket, and he tells Spider-Man that he doesn't have time for this. As Spider jumped in the air to shoot out a web, Spider-Man quickly shot a web at the spider's leg and pulled the spider down. The spider fell and hit the ground. He got up and asked Spider-Man what he was thinking, and Spider-Man would be on top of a light pole, telling the spider that he'll let him go when he returns the money. The spider got up and charged at Spider-Man with his fists clenched. Spider-Man quickly dodged the spider's punches, and he would web the spider in the face and give him a hard knee to the face. The spider would try to remove the webbing off of him, but Spider-Man would punch him in the face, making him fall over. Spider-Man would then web up the spider and tell him that if he is going to do illegal things, then he should go into prison. Before Spider-Man could take the spider away, the spider quickly barged himself out of the webs and tore the web off of his face, making him able to see. He says to Spider-Man that he gave him no other choice. The two charged at each other and continued to fight on for many minutes, attacking and dodging each other's moves. They both were very quick on their feet as they were fighting each other. The fight felt like it had gone forever. None of the two were being injured, but they were getting exhausted. Eventually, the spider gets knocked down when he failed to dodge one of Spider-Man's attacks. Spider-Man asks him why he needed the money in the first place. As exhausted the spider was, he explained that his parents lost their jobs, and he was doing whatever he can to help pay off their house bills. "This is why I chose to become the spider in the first place," said the spider. Spider-Man felt bad for what he was going through. He kind of knows how it feels to take in that much responsibility for someone they care about. So, Spider-Man helped the spider up and said that he'll let him go this time, but next time he's going to have to do a real job to get real money, the legal way. The spider swung away, thanking Spider-Man for understanding, and he promises him that he'll look for another way to get money. The two departed their own ways. The next morning at school, Harry was back to catch up on his homework with the help of Peter before graduation. That was just a few days away. Flash arrived in school a little late, as he was still healing from the fight with Spider-Man the night before. Peter would kind of distance himself from Flash, as he knew that he had to focus on Harry, and that Harry should not yet know that his father was still alive. When school ended, Flash ran out of there and went into one of the alleyways, changing into the spider suit. He looked around the city to try and find some ways to get money more safely. He wanted to keep the promise he made to Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be in a cell like any other crook that was out there. He got one of the newspapers and saw in the paper that a photographer was needed at the Daily Bugle. The spider thought in his mind that this was a great idea. The spider swung back to his home to try and find a camera. He eventually found one that his dad hasn't used in years, and he felt ready to do his thing. Peter is in his Spider-Man suit, and he is swinging through the city to try and to take in all that has happened still. He asked himself if Flash found a job or something he could do to help pay off his parents' house bills. He remembered a while back going through the papers and seeing a job of photography that was needed at the Daily Bugle. He said to himself that if he gets this job, then he could help Flash. He got his camera from his backpack and he heard a group of robbers invading a truck that had money that was supposed to be sent to the bank. Spider-Man found this as a perfect moment to give it a try. He would set his camera to automatic and he would go in. Spider-Man would be taking out the crooks as the camera takes the pictures. When it was all over, Spider-Man went over to see if they were perfect, and they were. Now he knew what he was going to do next. At the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson was yelling out orders over his phone in his office about what to write about Spider-Man and the Spider, and how they were menaces, crooks. As Jameson ended the phone call, Flash entered, asking if he was the boss. "Well, you are trespassing on sacred ground, are you not?" Jameson asked sarcastically. He then asked Flash what he wanted, and Flash put the pictures on his desk. Jameson was pretty surprised, seeing that it was pictures of Spider-Man stopping a money heist in the middle of the road, along with the spider stopping a moving car. As Jameson was looking through these photos, Peter comes in and sees Flash. Flash looks at Peter, and Peter looks at Flash. Jameson asked Peter who he was supposed to be, and Peter puts down his photos, saying that he was just coming in for the job as a photographer. Jameson didn't bother to look at Peter's photos, as he tells Peter that the Daily Bugle has just found its photographer, and that person is Flash. Flash looked at Peter's photos, and they were exactly the same as his. He asked himself, How was Parker there? He didn't see him anywhere. Jameson got a check out and said to Flash that he's going to start him off with $100, and when he brings in more, he'll give him more of a real paycheck. Flash smiled and took the check, thanking Jameson. Peter walked out with Flash and said to Flash that he has never seen him take pictures before. Flash just simply shrugged his shoulders and says that time passes. Flash would then give the check to Betty as Peter walks out of the Daily Bugle with a smirk on his face. He was glad to see Flash find a different way to get money. As the hours passed, Spider-Man made it to the top of the Osborn residence at exactly midnight. "You never disappoint, Peter," Norman said as he came out of the shadows with his mask on, showing his eyes. Spider-Man removed his mask and asked Norman what the plan was. Norman explained that they are going to go to Oscorp in stealth mode to make their way to the new CEO of Oscorp, which was Wilson Fisk. Peter tells Norman that if they are going to go in stealthy, someone should at least create some kind of diversion, and he knows just the person to do that. Peter would put his mask back on, and he would leave, telling Norman that he'll meet him at Oscorp. He was going to go find the Spider. He would see the Spider sitting on a rooftop looking through his camera at the shots he took of him taking out a group of burglars that tried to rob a bank. Spider-Man lands in front of him and tells him that he must congratulate him on getting a new job. The Spider said that he kept his promise, and he is sticking to it. Spider-Man tells the Spider that he knows a way on how he could get money for sure. He would explain to the Spider that the new CEO, Wilson Fisk, was a criminal. He wants everyone to believe Norman Osborn is dead, but he actually isn't. Fisk is making Norman do his bidding and try to take them out. The Spider wasn't expecting this. He first thought this was a joke, but Spider-Man was not joking around at all. He asks how he could help, and Spider-Man said to the Spider that he and the Green Goblin are going to go in to take on Fisk while he is distracting the security. The Spider asks Spider-Man if Green Goblin could be trusted since he did try to get them earlier, and Spider-Man would say that they have no other choice. The Spider would get his camera and he would say to Spider-Man that making noise is what he is a professional at. The two would web swing their way to Oscorp. They had little time, and every second had to count.